Psalm 55 says this: Listen to my prayer, O God. Do not ignore my plea. Hear me and answer me. My thoughts trouble me, and I am distraught. Because of what my enemy is saying, because of the threats of the wicked, for they bring down suffering on me, and they assail me in their anger. My heart is in anguish within me. The terrors of death have fallen on me. Fear and trembling have beset me. Horror has overwhelmed me. I said, Oh, that I had the wings of a dove, I would fly away and be at rest. I would flee far away, stay in the desert. I would hurry to my place of shelter and from the tempest, far from the tempest and from the storm. He goes on to describe how he wants this problem that he has to just go away and that God would do something about it. But he's complaining and he's frustrated and he's afraid. And then in verse 16 he says, As for me, I call to God, and the Lord saves me. Evening, morning, and noon, I cry out in distress, and he hears my voice. He rescues me unharmed from the battle waged against me, even though many oppose me. God, who is enthroned from of old, who does not change, he will hear them and humble them, because they have no fear of God. Then at the end, verse 22, he says, Cast your cares on the Lord, and he will sustain you. He will never let the righteous be shaken. But you, God, will bring down the wicked into the pit of decay. The bloodthirsty and the deceitful will not live out half their days. But as for me, I trust in you. The end. I think this psalm connects a lot with me right now because, I'm distraught at times. I think there's times when it feels like suffering and there's anguish within us. There's terror all around us. Now, we wish we could just escape, get on a plane and fly far away, find a shelter and hide far from the storm and the chaos and the pain in the world. I think also there's this part that he's saying, God, will you listen to me? Will you ignore me? Will you answer me? Will you hear me in this chaos? Man, isn't that just how life is often? Maybe think about, where do you want to escape right now? Do you trust that you could go to God and even kind of give that kind of complaint to God? Will you hear me? Can you be that kind of honest with God? I want to escape. I want to get out of this. I'm in anguish. I'm troubled. I'm distraught. So he does that. He confesses. He says, this is how I feel. And God, do you care? And then he kind of comes around and he says, I will call out to God because God saves. He says, morning, evening, noon, I'll cry out in distress and he hears my voice. God hears your voice. He sees you. It's throughout the whole Bible. Even the gospel is that God sees us in our distress and our pain and our anguish, and the enemy that is sin and death and a world that's broken, and he comes into it, he hears us, and he saves us. We're the bloodthirsty enemy that doesn't even, deserve half a life, and yet he comes and he makes us righteous. But he calls out to God only after he's confessed and he's lamented how he actually feels. And then at the end he says, cast your cares on the Lord because he cares for you. He will sustain you. I think often we just jump to the end and say, give your cares to God, give your cares to God. But it's actually the journey that's important. And I want to invite you into that journey in prayer today. Tell God how you actually feel and what's going on, all the range of emotions that you have. And then from that point, remember that God is a Savior and he's trustworthy. And then give God your actual cares. I'm worried about money. I'm worried about my house. I'm worried about my children. I'm worried about the future. But when we come and just say, God, I'm worried about the future. God, I'm worried about my house. We haven't done the first part, which is, God, will you even hear me? Do you even care? What I feel right now is fear and a desire to run away. But God, you save. And you hear me. And so I'm going to cry out to you all day, every day. I'm going to give you my concerns. I encourage you to do that.